Hey guys. Alright, so I've got three different manifolds here that are potential for old red. And before I choose one, these have different RPM bands that they're good for. And that's very clear for what they are, a low rise all the way to a high rise. They all claim to be around the same, 3,500 to 7,000, 3,500 to 7,000, and this one's 4,000 to 8,000. So they're all similar in what they claim, but we all know that lower RPM, more torque, kind of in the middle of the band, all high RPM power here. What I'm doing here is these are the two. I don't know if they're the best manifolds for a small block Chevy, but they're the highest, most expensive manifolds and claim to be the best manifolds for a small block Chevy. Now, there is a higher rise version of this manifold. And so it's not the reason why I chose these three manifolds to test is this is one of the cheapest manifolds, but this one has these center bolts because my cylinder heads got the 72 degree because it's a 88 to 91 style or 87 to 93 style cylinder head. So this has the little spacers here where you can get those angled plugs. These are for an older small block Chevy and do not have that. This one is actually kind of machined with a little bit more play so they can actually still fit in here. This one's going to require some machine work to be able to get my two center bolts in there. The AFR's got a clover leaf built into the top of the deck. Some people machine this out. A lot of people who have ran these will basically get rid of that clover leaf, but actually it hurts horsepower. But again, this is for people with a lot of low profile. Something else you'll see is the other two decks are flat, whereas this one's got a slight forward bias. That'll allow the carburetor throttle body to sit flush once the engine's in the back, because once it's sitting in, it'll lean back. The engine always leans back a little bit, so that will actually make it flush. These will actually be sitting back just a little bit. Not a problem for what I've got going on. This is for hood clearance. But what I wanted to see is, could this AFR outflow these two manifolds? And so I've already flowed these two. This one I just got in the mail yesterday. This is the one that I'm very much likely going to be going with. But I have not flow tested it yet. And I want to see baseline. Will the this is an Edelbrock Super Victor 2 manifold. This is a World Products Hurricane. It's a World Products, Professional Products, one of those Hurricane. This is the version 3, which the version 3 actually is not as good as the versions 1 and 2 from my understanding. And this is the AFR, and this is the 4810 port matched. And so this is a port match to an AFR 195 eliminator head. And so it's what this eliminator on the side kind of alludes to. It's a match set. This is what I'll be using. It's a 1206 gasket. This is a steel reinforced to help with handling boost and not blowing out the gasket, which I had that issue on my last 1206 gasket. It blew out on number 5 cylinder. This whole bottom piece just blew out, and I didn't know about it till I took it apart that I had a boost leak. But so the AFR is CNC port matched. Let me see if I can get a light here. So it's got a partial CNC port match to their 195, but it is not a port match to a 1206 gasket. So this is a it's basically $700 after tax for this manifold. Very expensive. It's going back regardless, even if I wanted to use it. I've got two of them. There's this one, and I've got another one sitting in a box right there. Reason for that is it's just a very bad casting batch. This doesn't really do it justice. There's casting sand all in the water jackets. It's just terrible. So I called AFR, said, hey, is this the quality I should expect from you? And they said, no, get Summit to send you another one. So they did, and it was, I guess, from the same batch. So even if I want to use this one, I would purchase directly from AFR just to make sure that that's a good cast. Something else that is better for these two is your front water jackets are the same, like for all of these. However, your rear ones on the AFR are much smaller. So instead of, you know, a half inch MPT, it'll be like a 3/8. So you can't flow as much water. So these two have that. The World Products was actually had a really nice machined surface for the carburetor hold downs. The 2892 not so much, and the 4810 not so much. Not a big deal there. Two accessory, I say accessory, I don't even know what these are for. They're probably something to do with the stock engine. I don't use those anyway. You don't have those provisions on the Victor 2, Super Victor 2. And again, I don't care, I don't need them. They're all kind of that air gap style, with the World Products being completely like that, the AFR being completely air gapped. The Super Victor, just the water jacket is not air gapped. Again, that's just kind of help with heat. You've got another accessory bolt hole in the front of the World Products. I'm not even exactly sure what that's for. Again, you have it on the AFR. Both those provisions, I assume, are something to do with the factory engine. I don't know what they're for. I don't need them. The one thing I did really like about the Professional Products was this additional water supply here. So when you're running like a water-cooled turbo, you can hook up here instead of tying into your crossovers for your cylinder heads. You can cut in right here for your water cooling for your turbos. This is a really good spot for that because it bypasses your thermostat, and you can get that natural convection cooling for the turbo. So this is actually a really nice feature on this one. You can again tee off on those, but that's a nice little feature to have, to not have to do that and not get all the complex tees and start getting turbulent flow inside your water crossover for your cylinder heads for additional cooling. Again, the Super Victor 2 does not have any of those provisions. It doesn't even have the air gap on the water jackets, but some of the things that I like about it, this wall here, this wall is pretty much, the way it's contoured in there is very different from the other two. So if you look, the other two, they pull that wall back really far. And I suspect it's due to trying to help plenum volume. This one, due to the fact that it's already a low rise. But when you do that, you effectively change the runner length on these far two runners. The Super Victor has made that wall in such a way that the runner length is almost identical between the inner and outers, which is very good. All of your flow, most people that do cylinder heads, all of your flow is on the roof. Okay, it's on the roof. It's on the roof on your cylinder heads. The floor is pretty dead space. However, you can adjust airspeed by making that space larger or smaller. The difference is, let me grab my snap gauge here. So if you look, it's going to be hard to show you on video. Let me see if I can wedge it in here. No, but so on the Super Victor 2, as soon as you get into the port entry, okay, all of these are consistently the same. All of them. So this will be effectively the port entry here. Same. All of them are the same. World Products, Hurricane. Not only is it larger than the Victor 2, the port, it starts way back here. Okay, it's larger, and you see how this whole area here from that corner wall to the middle of the manifold, that's a mistake. They could have got additional flow in here by pulling that wall back. You could weld that up and reshape that wall and fix that, but it's already really good on the Super Victor 2, and I haven't even flowed it yet, but I can already tell you there's a strong chance that one's going to flow more than this one, and these are comparably the same. The Victor 2 looks to be much larger, but it really just has to do with the fact that the drop floor on these is a little bit more on the Super Victor. You can kind of see that it sits up a little higher. Kind of hard to tell on camera, but it sits up a little bit higher on this flange. But if you look effectively, where this sits, it's almost flush here. There's very little, slight larger depth for plenum volume on the Super Victor 2 than the Huracan. Now, if you look at the AFR, again, this is not a high rise, but just giving you some. So in that same part of the plenum where all the flow is going to be, AFR did a really good job on these divider walls with the taper, but look how much smaller that is. So that's gonna hurt that's gonna make airspeed go up a lot. Now I will tell you, the AFR, my first flow test initially, it still flowed more than the Huracan, and I think that just has to do with this piece right here. So now we're going to start looking at ports. So we already looked at the fact that the CNC machine is on the AFR. But again, it is not machined to a 1206 gasket. So let's get the 1206 gasket aligned. There. So 1206 gasket, let me get that better. There. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of core shift on this. We can play with that a little bit, get that more centered. They put really large bolts in here so to allow you to kind of shift that gasket. So if we get that gasket kind of centered in the port, you can kind of see that it's just not a 1206. So if you think you're getting 1206 gasket, CNC, you're not. It's CNC'd to their 195 CNC enforcer heads. So Now, here's why I think the Huracan did not flow as much on the flow bench. There's a ton of core shift. You can tell how cheap this manifold is because the core shift on it is awful. But all right, so you're pretty much as aligned as you're going to be. You can see that these holes and these holes, see how the bolt holes don't exactly line up. But even if we were to center this on there, you can see how much more small. The walls are a little wider, but they're inconsistent. I mean, you can see all the work that needs to be done to these. But you can see how much smaller the ports are. So these are far undersized for my cylinder heads. Now, this is a little bit unfair because the Super Victor 2 is gasket matched. It's CNC gasket matched to a 1206. So you can see that slight, just very touch CNC machine. It still needs a lot of work because all it is the tip that's adjusted for this 1206. But you can see they CNC'd it to gasket match a 1206, and that is bolt holes, dead nuts. There's no core shift at all. It's very beautifully done, and that is a perfect match for a 1206 gasket. And you can see absolutely perfect for a 1206. So already my cylinder heads actually are more like a 1207, but that's because I went a little overzealous on the floors and took a little too much material off the floors. So yeah, so of the three manifolds, I expect this one to flow the best. I mean, it's gasket matched already essentially to my cylinder heads. This one flowed the least, but these two flowed almost about the same. They're very similar. This one flowed more in the mid flow, and then this one peaked out, made more peak flow. The reason why I think this one picked up more low to mid lift flow is, and you can't really see it very good, but let's put this on its side. All right, you can't really tell, and it's hard for you to see this, but the taper on this is absolutely way too much. There's so much taper. We start wide open back here, and by the time you get to the port exit, I don't know what the degrees of taper is, but it's a lot. So just giving you kind of a little rough feel, you know. Let's see, I don't really have a way to do this on camera with my snap gauges, but if I were to snap gauge the port entry to this one, okay, and grab the port, just that. Snap gauge that. That is how much taper there is from port entry to port exit. Okay, a little bit crazy. Now, looking at this one, for one, my snap gauge is full open and it's not big enough for this. I don't have one that's kind of in the middle of the pack except for this one. So this one, let's see, do this. So this is, you can kind of see that it's terrible. I'm sorry, I don't have a camera crew here. So if you look at where this is, it's almost exactly where the two silver pieces are. Okay, where the snap gauge begins. So we're just going to look at the inside here, and that's essentially exactly where the port entry is. All right. Now we're going to do the port exit. If I can even fit the snap gauge in there. Wrong cylinder. Wrong one. Alright. Right inside the gasket match, where it becomes the... This is really hard to do, guys, with one hand. Okay. Now look at how the taper is. So you can see that the taper on the other one was basically both the silvers, right? Inside. You can see how much larger this other port is on the taper. And we're not even talking about sidewall taper. We're just talking about port taper in general. So there's a lot more taper in this one, which really speeds up the air. And I think the minimum cross-sectional area in here is less than the minimum cross-sectional area in the head, which is another problem. It's really good for low-speed torque, awful for high RPM power, which is probably why in the higher flows the AFR edged it out. Because if you were to put this in here, you can already see how much smaller that port exit is from the other one. A little bit smaller. Again, these are just some random measurements, nothing precision about them. Set the camera down for a second and put my snap gauges away, because that's not really what we're here for. We're here to flow test these bad boys. So I'm going to flow test back to back. Even though I've already flow tested these, I'm going to do it again back to back. And since gasket match is not what we're testing here, I will not use the manifold gasket, because the manifold gasket will cover up some of the ports areas on these, and then none at all on here. And I don't want that to influence the flow at all. Now, I will also be flow testing it with the throttle body sitting on top. So my throttle body here, whenever I get the manifold mounted and start flow testing it, I sit this on top of it, maximize the throttle, and we'll test it that way. So stay tuned for that. That'll be the next video. I just want to kind of give you an idea of what I'm working with, baseline, some of the things that are good and not so good about them. We'll see how the flow test goes. Thing is the shape here is different. I didn't talk about that other than the clover leaf here. The only other problem I have with the clover leaf is I run the methanol sprayer plate for my 4-injector methanol injection, and that clover leaf I think will affect that too much, and probably wouldn't use this anyway without getting rid of that, just because of my application, even if I hurt a little bit of airflow. Anyway, we'll see how they flow. Take your votes